In this lesson, we'll run through the transmitter setup wizard. After completing this lesson, you'll be able to configure the transmitter. So we're going to click transmitter setup, and notice the first thing it tells us is that it'll switch to always disarmed for our safety. We're going to say OK, and then we're going to take a look at this input channel configuration, and we're going to say next. We want to make sure that we turn our controller on, and we want to make sure that in this case we're going to set it to acro, which is normal for a fixed wing or a quad. Now each time we come through these settings, we want to hit next and follow everything it tells us to do. Now in our case, I'm going to choose mode 2, which is throttle and rudder on the left, elevator and ailerons on the right. So this means that our throttle is the left stick, and for us to turn the quadcopter left and right about its central axis, we're going to use that left stick. The one on the right will tilt it left or right or pitch it forward or backward. So you'll notice here the note for a quad, its elevator is pitch, ailerons are roll, and rudder is yaw. So we'll hit next, and then it'll ask us to move the controller up and down. So notice I'm going to move the left stick up and it stops. I'm going to move the right stick to the right and it stops. I'll move it down, and then I'll move it to the right. And I'm going to say next to skip. In this case, we're going to skip all the accessories. And now it wants me to center everything. And once we're centered, we'll hit next. And now it wants to find the limits. So we're going to move the left stick all the way up, then all the way down. And then we'll move it all the way to the left and all the way to the right. And once we do that, now it's going to follow my movement on the controller. We'll do that on the left stick and the right stick. And then we'll be able to get the center position. Now, if you're using any accessory dials, you'll also have to do that with those. So for instance, if I go and I hit back and I go to move the throttle stick, I'm going to go ahead and this time I'm going to set up one of my accessories so that way we can see the process. So I'm going to use accessory 1 and I'm going to use my flight mode stick. So you notice that I can move accessory 2. And then I also have toggle switches, and I'll go to next because my controller doesn't have this many accessories on it. Again, we're going to center everything. Then we're going to move them all to their extents. And then we can use the dial and move them all the way left and all the way right. So that way, again, it can get its range. We'll go to next. And now it wants to make sure that none of them are switched. So all it's asking us to do is to move them and make sure that it follows the motions that you're doing. Now in most cases, you'll probably have to select pitch to reverse it. So for instance, if we don't reverse it and I move it up, it's actually moving down on the preview on the screen. So I want to make sure that I have up going up and down going down. Then I can hit next. And at this point, we have completed the wizard. We hit next, and now it's currently set to always disarmed. What always disarmed means is that anytime we want to make changes in the software, we're going to keep it disarmed so that way we're not powering anything in terms of the propellers, we're not making anything spin, and it'll allow us to save to the flight controller. If we have it set to armed, or we have it set to one of these so that, for instance, your accessory switch turned to one position activates and allows you to arm the quadcopter. Those are the specific cases where you actually want to fly it and take off and it's fully assembled. Anytime you're in the software, we want to come to this input section to armings and set it to disarmed. If I set it to armed, it tells me that it's currently armed. If I set it to disarmed and save, we now are able to make adjustments to the flight controller. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video, and we're going to move on to setting up the tilt servo for our camera.